round of applause for the two teams that have reached the final. On side proposition, we have BNN PC1. Yes, you can enter the stage. Opposition, we have SDC1. I'm Aonkita, your chair. With me I have Salmen, Najifa, Tasnuva, Zeedan, Ishrak. That's it. Without any further ado, can we have the Prime Minister to start the debate here?
Switch.
Oh, great. That's good.
We're adding one more person to the finals panel. We have another customer. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Can I have a dressing style?
They can have their phones. It's fine if they have their phones.
Be a supportive brother. How are you doing?
Don't worry about it. Good luck. You got this.
Okay. Am I perfectly audible? Then starting the speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable Chair, in the current cultural context and scenario, we have to understand what is more relevant today in gameplay and how that produces a more unique outcome. Firstly, pieces of setup. What is more important in cultural zeitgeist of this world? A world where the perception brings more enjoyable and meaningful emotional outcome for the players in general is what is more important in today's debate. Secondly, I would like to say that perseverance and persuasion in this game is more important and it creates more emotional impact in the players in general. So, how do I believe that Ella uniquely narrows down the goals of players in this game and how it narrows down the goals of gameplay and cultural significance of gameplay in general? What the liberationist interpretation basically looks like to a player is that they have to, basically make the Minecraft world or the gameplay look like a world where they have to save certain entities like the villagers from entities like the pillagers, and they have to have a certain set of goals that they try to accomplish in order to feel more accomplished in general, in order to feel like this game gives them more sense of freedom, this like in general sense of meaningful outcome. This interpretation inherently does not work because there is no proper entity to liberate in the first place. The villagers or the entities in Minecraft live pretty self-dependently. They have protective parameters in the village, like the iron golem, for example. They live pretty independently and very in a separate entity, right? And we believe that if you are trying to make a game like Minecraft, a gameplay and pursue an interpretation which makes this game look like a game where you have to save certain people, groups of people, this is actually degrading the cultural significance and the aspects of the game itself. Minecraft is special because this is a game where you can do anything you want. This is a game where you can create. This is a game where you can build and accumulate and feel a sense of success. This is important because there are games like Far Cry which are more in general developed precisely so that people can feel the sense of freedom and feel the sense of liberating other people or other groups and savior complexes. So you are narrowing down the aspect and vision of the game of Minecraft through the perception of through the interpretation of Li. You are therefore forcing down an artificial interpretation onto this game and narrowing the vision of this game. Because understand that the Wither or the Ender Dragon are entities which are uniquely like what the player has to be able to encounter. This also provides this also serves our case better, like the conquistadorial side better, because you have to uniquely pursue these cases. You have to set out for success and achievement when you go after them. Right. In Minecraft, it's a world where no one is truly bothering you. You have to be the one who is exploring. If you view entities like these as a threat instead of an adventure, instead of something that you need to seek out for and fight, then you're just truly narrowing down the aspect of this game. This is narrowing down and actually degrading the cultural significance of the game. It is disingenuous to believe that they need to be protected from these threats because they live very independently. Yes, sure. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is disingenuous to believe that they need to be protected from these. These threats are much more menial to the game. This game has much more aspects than just being limited to this. You are, as I said, therefore forcing down an artificial interpretation of this game and narrowing the vision of this game. If you have this savior complex and connect it to this sense of liberating other people, yeah, sure.
What is the impact of any of this?
The impact is that our side protects the cultural significance of the game better by protecting its more aspects and more visions that this game has to offer. Secondly, this perception actually broadens the vision that the people have for this game, right? Right now, people view Minecraft as a set of like unlimited opportunities. There is so much to accomplish, so much to go for, right? Even if you find temporary pleasure by feeding into your savior or liberating complex, better, this is only a momentary sense of accomplishment because games like Far Cry exist, right? Why are they not as successful and huge as Minecraft? Because Minecraft is seen in better sense if it is seen from a conquistadorial interpretation, because this does not culturally suppress the visions and potential of the game. But moreover, the game is actually significantly better pursued if we see it from this interpretation. Yes, both interpretations will coexist and exist in some way, but we believe to see Minecraft as a game which is only limited to Li, then it's going to be a game where you're only pursuing these menial tasks or menial visions, because Li does not provide much opportunity or much vision to this game. But moreover, as I've already explained, this inherently does not work in the first place. You are forcing down this interpretation of Minecraft. the Ender Dragon or the Wither are not actively harming people. You are the one who has to seek out for them to actually be threatful to you. If you're already viewing them as something like, oh my god, this is so harmful, this may attack someone, then that is not a very fun way to play the game, honestly. So this is actually very much degrading and harmful to the cultural significance and the cultural zeitgeist in a very broad sense of view. But secondly, in weighing, I would like to tell you that in our side of the world, we actually broaden the vision of the game. In our side of the world, we prefer CI because CI, even though it, relies on success, even though it relies on the player's personal skills and everything like that, these are things that are actually deeply personal to the player. They feel more fulfilled if they feel more connected to this world that they're building, because they are collecting diamonds or doing stuff in Minecraft like mining and going through stuff. They are trying to build themselves into a character, so it means much more to them in a very long run, because this game becomes more interpersonal to them rather than just going for LI. Because LI, as I mentioned, narrows down the cultural significance, narrows down the entire debate, or narrows down the cultural significance. But also I have mentioned that other existing games exist, so the opposition side has the burden to prove why LI is going to uniquely still be able to have some cultural zeitgeist or significance. So with that, I'd like to end my speech. Thank you very much.
Here, here.
I thank the Prime Minister for this speech, and I'd like to welcome the Leader of Opposition.
Am I audible?
Shuffle.
Is everything all right? BNN, is your mic working?
Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The player is faced with a choice. The choice of short-term joy, the choice of short-term excitement, but hollowness surrounded by toxic players and one-up culture, versus the choice of a slower route which builds more long-term friendships, which builds better values throughout one's life. Firstly, let me refute something that the government has proposed. Government's entire case relies on the popularity of Minecraft and the build-up of another culture within the Minecraft community. But we ask, what's the impact of any of this? We ask, should this debate not be based around which side proposes a better development of culture? Firstly, let's look at the cultural influence of Minecraft. Firstly, Minecraft is played by millions of children around the world who are highly impressionable. Therefore, the games that they play translate to how they perceive their world. This is especially true because most children now were born into quarantine and aren't socially adept, so most of their ideas of the world don't come from the real world, but rather from what games they play. Governments actually recognize this, and many push for the use of educational Minecraft, especially in Denmark, because they understand the impact Minecraft has on the development of children. This also applies to adults. The memories and content around these video games influence them to the point where this has hardened into something known as gamer culture. Secondly, how does this interpretation even manifest? Through content of video games and how they're marketed or how YouTubers talk to them are these interpretations manifested. Whether Minecraft is marketed as a world where you can do whatever you want and act freely or explore, versus where you conquer the world and acquire everything, versus where you choose to live alongside villagers. A lot of this is also done through which game modes of Minecraft are most popular. Our first argument stems from the fact that liberationism is a much more progressive interpretation and allows more progressive ideas within the minds of Minecraft players. The liberationist interpretation positions every friendly entity as one with a right to live. Examples include villagers being protected instead of exploited or killed, or creepers being killed not for the benefit of the player, or not just because the player wants to harvest the gunpowder from creepers, but rather because they're trying to protect the villagers. This translates to an idea that all people have the right to life and protection, while on the comparative, they're considered a means to an end, which the player should use for their benefit. It's very easy for a child to compare American settlers to a player taking and exploiting resources from their world. Secondly, liberationism states that progress needs to be more justified. The conquistadorial approach says that you can take all the resources in your world just because it's your right as a conquestor. The liberational approach, however, states that you can take what you need and give back what you want for a better world. This positions the Minecraft world as something that ought to be balanced instead of exploited. Note how this translates into the real world. Note how these ideas can translate into the climate discourse and environmental discourse around the world. While someone influenced by conquistadorialism would encourage the use of resources without replenishment, liberationism would encourage the protection of the environment and encourage the replenishment of the world. Liberationism teaches kids that the world is something that we live on, not something that we own, not something that we have innate rights to. Our second argument is that Minecraft is just more fun when you're a liberationist. This is specifically framed in multiplayer because this is specifically framed in multiplayer on our side. Game modes that are much more liberationist are better than game modes that are more conquistadorial. This is for one main reason. It's that it's easier to make a community in a liberationist versus in a conquistadorial game mode. And furthermore, liberationist game modes are just much more fulfilling. The reason for this is because there's far more worse communities in conquistadorial game modes because they're always trying to one-up each other or compete to be the best. And secondly, there's a lack of communication and cooperation in conquistadorial game modes, meaning that there's a lack of friends and unity. While in a liberationist game mode, you'd have to help others, or you have to help others, and through this you join more discords, you make more friends, and in the end you make more lifelong connections. Proud to oppose.
I thank the leader of opposition for his speech, and would like to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister here.
I will just take 30 seconds.
Hey, Tajwar so in second. Valid. Reply the tabao.
Hello, am I clearly audible? Okay. Before I start, I don't usually do this, but I want to thank my teammates. They have been amazing individuals throughout the tournament, and I really appreciate doing the finals with them. And yeah. Okay.
He's a good Tajwar.
Starting in 3, 2, 1. The fact of the matter is, within the status quo, Minecraft's popularity has significantly diminished. And the reason is the game's way in which it has started to develop has become far more lenient, and the creativity and the way in which it inspired people into something that they want to fulfill in their life is something that is washed away on side opposition. The first thing that I want to respond to is their premise on how values will be learned, and this will be really positive. There are 3 responses to this. 1, I'm unclear as to how these values will be really good. The reason is, these are oftentimes arbitrary things that the players do not control. And the intuition pump behind this is, you need to kill every single individual who you think or identify as a threat to the world order, regardless of them doing something bad. So if values is something that they identify, just the fact that a Ender Dragon exists and they identify themselves that they are bad, this is a bad creature that they need to kill around, that's something more horrible under their side of the house, which means the sort of conclusion that these people end up coming around is far worse. But 2, even if it is true that these values are going to be good, I'm unclear as to why is this unique. There are lots of other avenues through which they can gain this to get go. So if their premise is that, oh, now children can learn good values really well, I'm unclear as to what's the uniqueness of it. But thirdly, even if it's unique, the ways in which these values are operated is that you have the burden to kill every single individual, take down every single obstacle that you identify which harms the other the ways in which this world is operated and the world order of it. What this then means is violence just simply increases. Guess what parents then do when they feel like the violence is just significantly more, their child is just doing and killing out everyone? They will probably stop you from playing these games. So if their case is that now these children could access really good values, that is more horrible under their side of the house. What I will prove to you in the rest of my speech is that why this game just becomes significantly less fulfilling. Insofar as we have taken down the values being important, what is the most important thing is the idea of fulfillment through playing this game, and that is the reason behind why many players play this game to get go. And I think that should be the main metric. 6 layers of structural reasons. 1, on perception. The fact that what happens in liberation model under their side of the house is that you feel like you're in a unique position and you have to free the world at the entirety of it. Note how big the world of Minecraft is. It's quite literally unlimited. What this then means is that you feel the inherent burden that you need to solve out all the issues, kill out all the harmful animals that you identify, and you feel like this is going to be far more horrible. And the reason why this becomes far more toxicating is because there's a culture of rise to the top that comes around because of this. The fact that the more people who can show in around the friends around you who show you that they have liberated more people, the fact that they have killed more of these enemies is a sort of way in which they probably find this value of, which means there's a culture of rise to the top. What's the comparative under our side of the house? 3 things. 1, on control. The fact that you can control what you believe is enough. This is because success is inherently arbitrary. You believe that what you feel is fulfilling. For a child to get diamonds is something that will be fulfilling for them. For a person to build a house is something far more fulfilling. So if it is, I would argue, just the fact of control is simply far better. But 2, you can get really test out on how much skills you have. The fact that you can probably beat an Ender Dragon just once and feel like you are a good player enough. That just gives a much higher degree of satisfaction to you. What happens under theirs is that there's far more toxic ideas to you. You feel like you haven't done enough for the world. You feel that inherent burden, and that just simply takes out the large chunk of happiness from this game. Secondly, the state of satisfaction they get under our side of the house is just simply better, and this is because you get to experience the elements around the Minecraft world just simply on your own. You use your own imagination. You think what is more valuable, and you do that on your own, and that is what success to you. As a child, that's what the most important thing was. I used to play Minecraft explicitly because of that, because it was something I had the ability to control. It has been taken away from me under their side of the house. Then what this means is the entry barrier to finding satisfaction and happiness is simply far more under their side of the house. Third mechanism, popularity of the game just simply gets worse. And the reason is a large avenue for which the game is something perceived well is through things like content creators making videos on it. What happens on their side of the house is the same old content on beating how many enemies that exist in the world, how many there are actors that they can kill and liberate the world by any means to act maybe increase the autonomy that you perceive it to be. What happens under our side of the house is things like more speedrun, things like more the vast amount of unlimited content that you can engage in, and these content creators can make it so that, and that directly means the avenues through which this game is popularized is just simply far more. So on just that, there's far more buy-in under our side as well. But fourth and finally, which is on change in development and how it's simply better. It is to say that the sort of updates that then come around into the game is simply far more. Things like what happens on their side of the house is that these developers think that the most important thing to the players is just killing these more enemies and the problems around the world. So what they end up doing is things like just adding more hostile mobs, adding more enemies within the game to make it so that they can engage with that. So what happens then under our is just simply you add more avenues for changes. Things like just very little, things like just a lush biome that doesn't have any inherent goal but the ability to engage with it. The blocks that exist that you can use it to build your houses. All of these are myopic things that makes the game just far more creative and gives a really good positive perception to these people. Before I move on to my final two analysis, I will take a point.
How is all of the analysis about a race to the top in any way exclusive? Given that the same thing could happen at how much you can dominate, how many mobs you can kill, how many resources you can acquire.
The issue and the way that the motion is framed is that it's based on success and the skill that you have, which means that you have just simply far more control on what you own, you value yourself. The fact that if you value that having diamonds and maybe having a good house is not the definition of success to you. What makes your artistic skill far more fulfilling, that's what ends up happening. So rise to the top is something much more one-dimensional under their side of the house, and it is something that harms the players' psyche far worse. Last few pieces of analysis. One, there's far more forced choice under their side of the house because players are left to think that the fact that there's an ender dragon is what ends up harming the villagers' peace, so they have to engage with it. This oftentimes makes them question that whether or not the game is really good or whether or not the end goal of it is good. But lastly, I want to flip their case on unity within the players. I would say it's far worse because these players think that they are moral actors in unique position. What they themselves then identify is that the other player within their game or their own world is an individual who might or might not harm the unity and the world balance of that. What then this means is that they're oftentimes more likely to act out, more likely to fight against them, more likely to identify them as horrible actors. So if anything, anarchy within SMPs just simply increase far more. This is because they themselves believe that they are people who can act out on their own and they cannot be trusted. What all of this just simply means on impact, the game just feels far more fulfilling. For a lot of people, the Geese game is the only way they can find escapism. For a lot of people, this is the only way they can find happiness. This is something that exists under our side of the house and far better preserved. Very, very proud to boast.
I thank the DPM for the speech. I'd like to welcome the DLO.
Big man. Big boy. Marxist Minecraft.
Hello, am I audible? Okay, great. I won't just start my speech. I would like to make some tributes or say certain things. This is the third SIDT that I have either debated in or organized in. The first SIDT that I ever did was, I think, back in 2023, where I got my novice championship. It was the second ever tournament I ever did, and it was one of the most special tournaments I ever did. SIDT 2024 is something that I organized, and I had a lot of fun. People like Bidita helped me back then, and they organize an amazing tournament now. But the main thing I want to say is about the community that Scholastica Debate Club in particular has given me. I joined this club, I think, when I was something like 4th grade. And I remember Abrar Bhaiya and a lot of other seniors like Shahid Sami and everyone was back there. I remember I used to be in 4th grade and senior Bhaiya Purashto, and they used to give us sessions and everything. The reason I was so close to the sport was because I had like family problems back home. So I used to be like, I want to stay in school for 40 more minutes. So I used to go to debate club sessions. And 8 years later, it has always been a dream for me to be in the open finals of SIDT. And although a lot of people have cursed me for the fact that I even did this tournament, I would like to say that this was incredibly special to me. Especially to my teammates, especially to all of the people that supported me, Farah Miss, Tabi Birsia, the entire Orcom, etc. Now, without further ado, before I forget what Tajwar just said, I'll start my speech. Mic testing. Okay, great. Starting in 3, 2, 1. The conquistadorial approach, not only in Minecraft, but in gaming in general, has ruined the culture. It has turned it into a cesspool of far-right politics. It has turned the communities into nothing but toxicity, and it has done nothing to make the game more fun. Let Minecraft not fall for the same fate as Fortnite. Couple of responses at the very top. Why do we think that Minecraft does not become unpopular? First, on the idea that the game becomes less fulfilling at the point where it is liberationist. Although there was not enough analysis done, I'd argue by Tajwar, we'll get to this on a later part as to why analytically it's actually more fun than it is liberationist. Second, even if they were to win this clash, I think it is completely impactless. Given that this is a motion about cultural influence, whether or not something has a lot of cultural influence is secondary to whether that influence is good or bad. If ultimately the influence of Minecraft's culture is bad, then their more popularity flips on it. Third, this content on our side of the house is very much doable. For every single Minecraft speedrun video, there could be a Minecraft video about, I don't know, building a wall around a village. It could be about certain game modes where the main job is cooperating with your friends. Or it could even be Let's Plays, where the main point of the Let's Play is to create something beautiful within the game. You have to go out with your friends. This looks like series like Poet Plays, who created like dinosaur enclosures. Or this could be like Hermitcraft, where some of the most popular YouTubers in the world work together. But fourth, I think that a lot of the idea that you can create certain content that isn't liberationist is completely unsymmetric. You can create content that is suited to liberationism, you can create content that is suited to conquistadorialism. Unclear why that is not symmetric. Second, on the idea that competition makes things far worse. First, completely unsymmetric. You can have competition over conquistadorial things, if anything, because liberationism creates a culture of cooperation, because oftentimes you often have to cooperate with other people. This is something which is better. The fact that there is competition towards being a good person, I don't think is a bad thing. The second thing is that the value of Minecraft is prescribed, and then on their side of the house you can choose what that means. Note that that's not what the motion is. There's two very different interpretations of what Minecraft is. On your side, you have to defend conquering as much as possible, dominating as much as possible, making yourself the master of a world. But on our side, you position yourself as a defender. Value on either side of the house is prescribed. Either side of the house you can choose just as much. Second thing that I'll go talking about, and specifically defending the idea of how progressive politics is pushed by liberationism, and specifically about how gaming culture is something which has always been conquistadorial, and Minecraft has been a sword in the side of far-right politics within gaming. First of all, why do we think that the politics involved, or all of this, is on the tipping point? 4 reasons. A, I think that there is an ongoing culture war in video games that is happening. I think that I don't really need to prove why it is that video games have a huge amount of influence on politics. We have seen this particularly true in things like 4chan, in things like just general US politics, where the younger population is hugely influenced by things that they see online, video games, movies, etc. Note what they compare. Note what's important here. The vast majority of video games are specifically far-right, or in some ways have far-right communities, because they're based around conquistadorialism, whether that be Call of Duty, whether it be all of those games. Specifically, Minecraft is the only game that has any sort of liberationist message, an image of creation, an image where you're defending people, an image where you're not just conquering people, or not just trying to defeat your opponents, but creating something or being attached to certain people. Note why that is so important in doing all of this. Second, I think that marketing has a huge effect. The way in which this cultural zeitgeist is actually formed has not been talked about this day, but a lot of it comes from the way in which Minecraft is marketed to the general population, specifically to kids. On their side of the house, it will be marketed as a free world where you can do whatever you want. You want to take much as possible, you want to build big monuments. On our side of the house, it is framed as things that you create or protect, as a world that you live in that you need to protect, a village that you need to protect, or enemies that you need to kill, not because you want to, but because there is a greater purpose. Note how important corporate marketing has been to how children view themselves. The fact that children know corporate brands more than they do the presidents of their own countries. This is definitely the tipping point. But the final thing is proximate experiences. I won't go into this any further because I feel like this is not something that they contended to. Rami probably will. He will be unable to break it. Second thing then, why is the value something which is good? This is the main thing that Tajwar clashed on. Couple of reasons. A, I think the killing mobs thing is completely uncomparative. On our side of the house, sure you kill mobs. On their side of the house, you're also killing mobs. Unclear what the comparative is. But what the comparative actually is on motives. On our side of the house, it is said that you can only kill mobs because you're protecting people. That progress needs to be morally justified, not something that can simply be justified by accruing more and more resources. Once again, we kill zombies not because we want their flesh, or creepers because they want their gunpowder, or not because we want to rule the world, but because we want to protect people. I feel like that sends a far better message to kids that we should kill people for our own benefit. But thirdly, the idea that you now see other people as bad and we need to protect them. I'd argue that in our current culture of apathy, kids being taught that injustice is something that we need to stand up against, that there are bad people in the world that should be fought against, is more important than ever. I don't want to bring up the Epstein files, but I think that's a perfect example of why it is that interventionism, not apathy, is more important in the current society. But moreover, a lot of the other values, which they simply ignore here, are unilaterally good. Things like vulnerable communities needing to be defended is unilaterally good. Things like there wanting to be balance in the world very easily translates into something like environmentalism, which again is very good. And I really want to illustrate the point here. For a child which, I don't know, thinks about, watches games, or watches the marketing or the content surrounding video games like Minecraft, where it's often about, I don't know, creating a better world, or in certain game modes, I don't know, making sure that nature is protected or whatever, very easily translates to environmental rhetoric, or environmental rhetoric about how the world needs to be balanced and it should not be something that destroyed. But the thing is, I think that on the comparative, it's like a lot of the xenophobia regarding this type of rhetoric translates over. The final argument that we'll be running with is how it turns kids into psychopaths. I think that a lot of kids go into gaming because they're socially maladapted or rejected. And true, they feel like they need a sense of control or they need to conquer the world. For all the answers we've already given you, gaming culture accepts them with open arms and turns them into far-right losers and incels. How is it that liberationism, A, is still a lot more fun and enjoyable, and is a community that's still going to accept a lot of these kids, and second, the massive impact? Why is liberationism genuinely enjoyable? First, there is still an open world. You could conquer or you could liberate. What the debate is really about is whether or not kids are influenced into one game mode or the other. The second thing is that I think that there is a huge amount of value in constructing, in defending, and in doing things like protecting a villager. Why is it that on our side of the house, at the point where you spend a lot of time building a wall around a village, or thinking about destroying the villager gardens to be able to make sure that villagers are protected, is something that people do not value, is up to debate. But the thing is, a lot of the loss associated with it, and a lot of the bonds that you make with people like villagers or dogs, etc., within video games is incredibly important. For these children who feel like they do not have a sense of control, it is a lot less constructive to say you will get a world where you could do whatever you want and turn them into sociopaths, compared to here is a friend that you have. It could be a dog, it could be a villager, it could be a sheep, it could be a cow farm, it could be anything constructive, and to say this is a world that cares about you, this is a world that you can shepherd, this is a world that you ought to protect. I think that from the perspective of a child that is maladapted, it is better to ease them into constructiveness, to ease them into being a good person, or to defend, or to be friends with people, even if it is virtual, than it is otherwise. The final thing, in terms of fulfillment from video games, I think we told you why a liberationist interpretation of these video games, which would likely translate into liberationist video game, liberationist sort of rhetoric and or liberationist game modes being better, lead to greater fulfillment because the communities surrounding it are necessarily better. What we prove to you then is that even irregardless of anything else, the community surrounding Minecraft is better, the rhetoric surrounding it is better, and we do not produce incels. Pretty good impact. So proud to oppose.
Here, here. We do not produce
Thanks
insults.
everyone for the speech. I'd like to welcome the governor. Here you go.
Asha, where are... Hello, am I clearly audible? Starting my speech pretty shortly, but before that, shout out to Rabib and Irsia for a wonderful tournament. It's been very well organized, and just knowing just how much they had to go through to actually get this tournament afloat, and like how hard they had to work like to some degree. It's truly incredible that they managed to make this one a pretty successful and enjoyable tournament for everyone. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the organizers. Also a small shout out to Amarjan, Shobarjan, you know who you are. Without further ado, starting in 3, 2, 1. Firstly, I think there has been a misunderstanding regarding the interpretation of the conquistadorial approach to playing Minecraft. From opposition, they seem to think that the conquistadorial approach... Achha, wait. My timer isn't working. Can I restart?
Restart.
It's fine. Just restart.
Restarting pretty shortly. Starting in 3, 2, 1. There seems to be a confusion regarding what the conquistadorial approach actually means from side opposition. The conquistadorial approach means making the world of Minecraft your own and shaping it in your own image. This doesn't necessarily mean conquest of the world in the way that you go about, that you go through like violent means to oppress and like subjugate every single entity within the world in and of itself. Because here's the thing. There is nothing really to conquer in Minecraft in terms of like an institutional or state level. There's no state in Minecraft. There's no organizations in Minecraft. There are no entities like that in which you need to oppress and you need to bring them under your control. The way Minecraft works as a sandbox game is that inherently from the very beginning, it is a world that you own. As a sandbox game, the purpose of it is supposed to be that it is a game where you can do whatever you want at your own pace. You have no time limits. You have no preset goals. You have no like boundaries as to what you can do. There's no boundaries or there's no like thing dictating what you can build and cannot build. That is the idea of conquistadorial approach. It means to view the world to be your own from the very beginning. It is not about conquering or subjugating other entities. This is something that is uniquely achieved under our side of the world. But also note, on the first primary clash regarding like moral teachings, the primary crux of their case throughout this entire debate has been that Minecraft is a good avenue for imparting a lot of moral lessons onto children. Firstly, there's a few issues with that. Heavily from DLO, what we get is that Minecraft needs to be some sort of political avenue to like propagate liberal and progressive ideals into children. There's a few problems with this. Firstly, he correctly identifies the problem within the wider gaming community that certain communities have become cesspools, certain communities have become full of incels and far-right activists and whatnot. But their own framing and their own analysis is something that completely defeats this when it comes to Minecraft specifically. They concede that Minecraft by nature is a very simple game. It is very vague. You do not have entities. You do not have factions that have stated goals, that have stated ideologies. These are goals that you have to like artificially prescribed to them. The illagers do not attack the villagers because the pillagers think that they're the master race or whatever. They attack the villagers because they have been programmed to. There is no lore behind why zombies, dust, and other like hostile mobs exist within the status quo of like Minecraft. They just exist, and you as the player are supposed to come up with your own like independent interpretation of that. The only thing that they tell you to this is that, oh, because of people being acquainted with far-right circles such as like 4chan, Reddit, or the very fact that far-right parties in the contemporary world are engaging in things like corporatism, for example, it is going to be extended to Minecraft. Here's the thing, insofar as that you concede and state at the very first line of this like entire debate that Minecraft is primarily played by an audience that is very young, it is unclear as to why literal children are going to be the ones that are browsing 4chan, are going to be the ones that already have previously held far-right views, which they're going to prescribe onto these mobs and prescribe onto these entities. That is completely unclear. But also, I think these like propagation, the idea of like far-right, ideologies is something that is far easily propagated when you seek to like, liberate this world, and when you see the world as something that you need to liberate. Why? Because it forces you to imagine certain mobs as being inherently enemies rather than products of some like creation, rather than like, existing in this world beyond their own free will. It artificially turns these villagers into fascists. It artificially turns the Ender Dragon into an inherently evil entity rather than an entity that only stays in his own dimension, does not attack the overworld, does not harm villagers in any capacity. This is where like the actual context of Minecraft is very important. Entities that actually pose significant danger to villagers, such as like the Wither and the Ender Dragon, are entities that only the player has the unique ability to seek out. Villagers never interact with these mobs. Villagers never interact with these entities. Only the player has the ability to locate a stronghold and go to the end to fight the Ender Dragon. Only the player has the ability to encounter the Wither by summoning him. These are not things that the villagers can normally do. You are creating false enemies, and you're creating this sort of idea that these villagers need to be liberated from something. Again, this is something that just simply does not stand. But also, in terms of Minecraft being an avenue for good moral teaching, this simply does not work, because again, a lot of things are simply lost in translation. Insofar as that you agree that the player base of Minecraft is very young, it is unclear as to why that these player base are going to be able to like actually attribute good moral teachings in through their actions. They can like mine a bunch of diamonds or whatever and kill zombies that were in their way. The interpretation is not that I killed those zombies because I wanted to protect the villagers. The interpretation often is that I killed that zombie because he was in my way while I was trying to collect resources. Again, a lot of media can have a lot of moral messaging behind it. Avatar: The Last Airbender is an amazing example of it. It's an amazing example of a show that has a complex meaning that is condensed in a way that is understandable for children. And even then, a lot of this media fails. Even media that is so heavily fleshed out and has a lot of lore and has a lot of character to it fails. Why? Because children simply do not comprehend meaning on that level at such a young age, or simply do not want to. When I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender as a kid, I didn't view the Fire Nation as this genocidal far-right empire. I thought they were pretty cool because they were aesthetically pretty cool. The characters from that country were very interesting and they appealed to my personal taste, etc., etc. But also, if Minecraft needs to be this avenue for, like, there are other games that are far better avenues for moral teachings that are actually more built to be moral avenues to begin with. This looks like the Oregon Trail, a game literally about the Indian struggle for maintaining their land against like American white settlers, that is played across like every single high school in America to the point where it's basically part of their curriculum. These are games tailor-made to impart a historical and moral lesson, where in Minecraft you have to artificially impose this. But also, note, children play games in order to gain entertainment and in order to, like, escape from the real world, escape from authority that exists within the real world. They are not actively looking for moral lessons, which means that the likelihood that they're going to get moral lessons from their experiences within the game is something that is unclear and never proven. In regards to this whole the clash regarding popularity culture and how it manifests, they tell you that unity is greater among players insofar as that they now have a common cause to protect these mobs. Firstly, we prove to you why this is something that is imposed and that there is no actual need to protect these mobs to begin with. But also, we believe that under their side of the world, there's probably a higher likelihood of you villainizing other players for their specific choices in regards to playing the game. When you view Minecraft as a game that is about saving people, you are naturally going to villainize your other friend who is also a child who doesn't play Minecraft the same way, who plays Minecraft for the fun of it, who plays Minecraft to make the world his own, to build temples or whatever, to build different buildings, to enjoy it in their own pace instead of hurrying and rushing to save the villagers, to protect them from these harmful mobs, etc., etc. But also, cooperation is literally inherently better in a conquistadorial mindset, because again, The world is very vast and it belongs to you from the get-go. It is not one that you can tame on your own. In order to build a large project or whatever, a large castle, it takes a lot of time to do so alone. It encourages you to invite your friends over to play with them. It encourages the teamwork and cooperation in that regard. And it gives you freedom of interpreting the game however you want. With that, very proud.
I thank the Gov for the speech. Before the obvious starts, can I have 1 minute? I have to make
I also need a minute, please.
Rabib. Hey, Rabib, that's the same.
Operate whenever you're ready.
Okay, right. Before starting my speech, I want to do a few shout-outs. First of all, even though this has happened over like a lot of speeches, I would again want to thank Rabib Bhai and Ishrak for creating a very good tournament. A person who has not been talked about is Aryan Bhai. Where is he? Yes, and guys, a round of applause for him. Also, a round of applause for my coach and my lovely teammate, myself. And the last one I would like to talk about is Samrul Bhai, because this might be the last chance I debate with him, but I owe almost all my debating career to him because he taught me what I know and made me who I am. So, big round of applause for him. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. As I start my speech, I would like to point out something. One thing that I would like to point out is a nuance that they miss. Even though people could be killed on our side, which we concede to, but a nuance is that you need to make a moral choice on our side, that you never need to make on their side. On their side, you don't need to have any sort of moral concessions or think about your morality before killing someone, which you need to do on our side. They keep on implying and imparting that we are saying that something bad is happening in Minecraft, but this is not necessarily true. We are not imparting the fact that pillagers are necessarily white colonists and these villagers are black people. We are imparting that everything must have a moral reason. You must have some sort of moral intuition before making a choice. You must have some sort of moral concession before making a choice. The reason why the far right is so popular is not because of the fact that people are selfish. The reason why people don't support climate change and stuff like that is not because of the fact that they have any form of moral choice, but because of the fact that they are necessarily selfish. And they keep on saying about the fact that we are saying we need to protect the villagers and stuff like that, but we don't mean that. The point is the people need to feel like they need to protect it. Moving on, they never contest the fact that, look, children are perceptive. They learn a lot from games. They learn a lot from what happens in the games. They never tell us how these things that on their side, how things such as violence are so worse on their side. They never contest to the fact how they solve this in any sort of way. Also, moving on to the fact, another thing that was not contested. not contested to in their speech was about how kids turn into sociopaths, how these people feel rejected and how these people need a sense of control. The thing we do is we don't leave them in a world where they keep on becoming sociopathic. We provide them with a community, a place where they feel they belong, a place where they could interact, and a place where they could feel that, oh, okay, I belong here. We don't necessarily let them go out and destroy people. We help them build a moral intuition for themselves. We help them build a morality for themselves. And that is why we are far better than what opposition proves on their side. Moving on. This is by far one of the most important clashes in this debate, which is about which side is more fun. We believe that our side is more fun. I don't believe going out alone and killing people just because for the need of it and in the name of adventure and creativity is in any sort of way fun. The thing we do is we provide a community. We provide them with people who would talk to them. We provide them with people who they can call and hang out with. We provide them with people who they can ask for moral support. We provide them a place where they can work together. We promote things such as cooperation because that is what we promote. Also, on our side of the world, things such as toxicity are far less, and things such as cooperation are far more. I find it quite stupid saying that people would compete on the fact that who helped more people. I necessarily find it very stupid. And even if I consider the fact, I still don't understand why it is not symmetrical. On their side, it is far worse compared to what happens on our side, because on their side, we have people who are competing on the fact that who killed more people, who brought in more resources, and which makes it more toxic. Now, the last thing that I would like to talk about is things such as progressive politics. We have already established the fact that children are perceptive and they learn a lot of things from games such as Minecraft or from things such as movies. On our side, we teach them something very important, which is that all people have a right to live, all people have a right to belong, compared to their side, which promotes instrumentalization. On their side, we see that it's being promoted that you could kill people just for your own benefit, just so that you can take gunpowder, just so that you can rob the villagers. On our side, we teach these children about better things. On our side, things such as discourse about important issues like climate changes become far more better. People talk things in a different way. People perceive things in a far different way because of what we promote. For all these reasons, so proud to oppose. Thank you.
I thank the author for the speech. I'd like to welcome the author reply.
Am I audible and visible? Okay, great. I know this is the second time we're giving tribute, but like for this last one, because it's the last speech that we're gonna give, I'd like to thank BNMDC one specifically. So specifically to like Ramin and Tajwar, I've known these people debates since I started debating, honestly, probably around 2023 and 2024. I've seen Ramin and Tajwar at multiple pre-worlds. We were in phase 2 of camp together. Tajwar also did Paris WSDC. We have done uncountable tournaments together. We have been friends and we've hung out so many times that I cannot count. And this sort of goes out to the wider debating community as well. This is the community where I made friends, and the reason for why I debate is because of that. It's not about winning, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey or some other corny one-liner that like motivational speakers say nowadays. I don't know, I haven't kept up. But irregardless of who wins this, we're going out to BFC after this, right? Also, everybody in SDC, we're going out to BFC after the closing ceremony is over. If anybody wants to show up, you guys can show up. Okay, great. Okay, you guys can show up as well, yes. I'm not paying for you though.
I am.
Okay, great. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. BNMDC with, oh wait, actually, I don't have a time. Generational aura loss. Okay, no. Okay, great. Starting my speech, you already know what my opener is now. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. BNMDC gets the motion wrong. You probably knew that was my opener because the motion is the main page that I have in front of me. Why do I think this? It's because the conquistadorial interpretation is not simply where there is no interpretation within the cultural zeitgeist. It is specifically stated as one where domination and or violence is one that you do to accrue your own wealth. This is not new analysis, this is me pointing out the motion. On ours, the thing is, a lot of the activities that you do on either side of the house is probably the exact same. The game is the exact same. The motion never says the game is different. What it says is the interpretation of the actions that you take in the game and the justification for them. On Gov side of the house, that interpretation is one of domination. That we're doing it because we can do it. That we're doing it because we want to control as much of the world as possible. The motion specifically says acts of domination. I mean, you cannot simply gaslight me. The difference here is that we say that things must have moral justifications. Here's why that framing is important. I do not think that our argument about morality was specifically that political messages would be in Minecraft. We're not saying that pillagers are colonists or whether pillagers are black people, infiltrating Fortress Europa or something. What the argument was that Minecraft being liberationist pushes a specific personality and or pushes a specific moral value that is not based on politics but based around morality. The idea being that people ought to be helped. The idea that things must have moral justifications. The idea that the world is not a vast place that is only our own to do whatever we would want, but is a place which ought to be taken care of. Note why this is so important in a political context. The far right and or right-wing politics and or incel culture is not based around any specific politics. It's based around the idea of selfishness, the idea that you should not care. The modern far right is not one of morals or values, it is one that rejects morals and values. That says that we ought to take everything we can and that we should not care about anything else. This is why capitalist accumulation exists. It's because we say that we do not care about the environment, we only care about accumulation. However, I concede to something within this debate, which is that at the end of the day, this is an incredibly high burden argument with a high impact which ultimately is up in the air as to which side it will go. But I think something which was not high burden and which was not high impact was the argument about personality. It was the idea about whether or not kids are pulled into sociopathy and the idea about fulfillment. I think that the argumentation regarding fulfillment are, in the best case scenario for BNMDC, completely symmetric. There's probably reasons or ways in which these things can be fulfilling. There's probably ways in which liberationism can be fulfilling. There's probably content that you can create on either side. There's probably communities that you can join on either side. And I'm even perfectly willing to say that communities surrounding liberation, conquistadorial pursuits probably do still have thriving communities where people work together to do something. Fine. But why is it that we still win after all of that? It's because of the personality that you're bringing up to this and or the message that you're sending to little kids who are genuinely maladapted. I do not think, because of all of this analysis and the heaps of analysis we got from Moraisa, that kids that are trying to escape will not find fulfillment. The fact that they still have a world that they can control, but instead you are giving them responsibility. That is the primary difference. We are not saying that you do not have a control over this world. The cultural zeitgeist, one that is not only taught to adults, but to kids that are playing the game, is that this is a world that you control, but is ultimately still a world that you are responsible for. A world that has consequences. The reason for why that was so important was because it helps a lot of these kids that are maladapted, that oftentimes fall into sociopathy and incel culture. People that would have fallen into the darkness that is the black pill, into a world of goodness, into a world of responsibility, in a world that says that caring about other people, caring about social relationships, caring about the villager in a village, or about the dog that you tame is something that matters and something is important. Why is this so important at the end of this? Because all of the impacts within this debate I feel like are quite hypothetical. But for the child that stays in and plays video games all day, that does not have friends, that does not have the ability to get anything done, or feels like they are a failure, I have 15 seconds left, they are able to get a way out. That they can one day have friends and that they can one day be normal members of society. That is why you should vote opposition.
I thank the occupier for their speech. I'd like to welcome the last speaker of the debate, the Gov Reply.
Hello, am I clearly audible? Amazing. Starting in 3, 2, 1. I don't think so Samirul will get away with lying again and again in finals. What he's tried to push on the get-go from his speech is that how perception never, things never changes. The thing is, perception necessarily changes the way that we interact with the game, the way game develops, the way we interact with the nuances and the things. It changes the fundamental behaviors of the game. So when he says that perception is never going to something meaningfully change the game itself, I think that's just untrue. But also look at the contingency of their own impact and their own argument. That is, right-wing culture is in the rise and people has become far more incel. If this is the case and it's something that is so much ingrained within the gaming culture of the world, I'm just unclear as to what degree of change now they're gonna get. The fact is, this will still exist and this will have a lot of impact. But I will still engage with it, which is to say that the main crux is to say that there's positive moral values. I will flip this in a couple of ways. One, this is just untrue, because the premise of these values are oftentimes that you need to protect the world, protect the people around you in the ways that it's possible, and the means justifies the end. What this directly means is, if the values such as minorities are the one who are taking our jobs and they're the harmful people for our country, are just simply far more now prevalent to these children. So if anything, values are simply votes under their side of the house. To them it feels like there's no way to create change by a dialogue and talk. There's no way to create change. We're just talking with the other person, and rather you have to come into violent means. If anything, these are people who become psychopaths under their side of the house. But also, more importantly, even if it is a unique positive benefit, I'm unclear to what extent this is unique to Minecraft itself. There are multiple other avenues to do so. But lastly, let's just assume it's unique. The thing is, on scale, what is the impact of it is? Which is to say that there are like a few more people who have strong values. But what happens under our side of the house is that every person who plays Minecraft, the millions and millions of kids, just find this game far more fulfilling. So just on scale is just far better. But also, this takes to my second point on fulfillment. And what did they do to respond to our case, which was something that I don't feel like they never actually did. Which is to say, they firstly come out and say that, oh, there will be other level of liberationist LI will probably have mods and content that will still exist. This was assertive at best, which is to say that sure, it will be existing, but it will never be as fulfilling. The fact that you have the inherent burden to make the world a better place, that you have the inherent burden to slay every mob that exists who you identify as a harmful way for your own villagers that exist. All of these are simply just going to be far less fulfilling because it takes out the joy and control out of your own hands in the game. But also, more importantly, their counter on using mods doesn't work, because you using mods is something that you feel is antithetical. This is to say you are fundamentally changing the game structure that exists within the game, which is to say the moment you use it, you feel like you are changing something and you are shying away from the responsibilities that is assigned by you in the game. All of this just simply proves that it's far better. Lastly, I will just clarify what we do tell you, that how domination looks, how domination primarily looks like under our side of the house. It is to say that you have just simply far more control within the things that you do in the game. You have the control to your own fate and the goals that you end up pursuing within the game. Whether or not you want to mine for diamonds, whether or not you want to mine for netherite, whether or not you want to build a really cool castle in the nether, all of these are something that is just simply far more important to you, an approximate thing. At the end of this speech and debate, we prove to you that it's far more fulfilling for these people to simply enjoy this game on their own accord and take the decision that they were meant to take on their own. Every player has different perspective, every player has different goals. I think we are just simply able to fulfill that on much greater extent compared to side opposition. I think that's individual debate winning, and we are very, very proud to propose.